Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined by Jeff Robinson. Jeff, we're in this lull period between the end of the Women's Rugby World Cup and the start of the Autumn International Series. We even have some international games coming up. One which is somewhat close to home, which is the game between Ireland and New Zealand taking place in Chicago. But yeah, Canada doesn't play. Technically, the international window hasn't opened yet, but they will be playing next weekend, so the second full weekend of November. And we'll get onto that in a bit. But before we get into that, there was an interesting press release that came out from Rugby Canada over the past week, which is about this new task force with University Rugby to strengthen the high performance pathway. And they said they've proud to launch the University Rugby Task Force, a collaborative initiative designed to strengthen university rugby as a key part of Canada's high performance pathway and elevate the sport's presence on campuses nationwide, and grow rugby into one of the leading sports within universities across the country. Got a bit of a mix up there, but as I say, it's a wonderful day for Canada and therefore the world. So, looking into the basics of this is a partnership between Rugby Canada, U Sports, the Canadian University Men's Rugby Championship, which is actually coming up in a few weeks' time, university programs, and the provincial union. It's working with university rugby programs and athletic departments to create meaningful engagement opportunities, supporting high performance alignment for players, coaches, and officials, actively recognizing and collaborating with U Sports and the CUMRC, and strengthening relationships with provincial unions, regional conferences, and university alumni to enhance domestic rugby infrastructure. There's also an interesting quote coming from this as well, from Matthew Davies, who is the U Sports Chief Sport Officer, saying U Sports has long been a leader in Rugby Canada's development pathway, with 10 U Sports athletes on Canada's Olympic silver medal team and 29 players plus coaches at the Women's Rugby World Cup. This collaboration is essential to building the best possible system for rugby in Canada. And Mariah Sampson, the chair of the CUMRC, said university rugby has always been a catalyst for developing elite players and coaches. This task force unites our collective strengths to help university rugby thrive and inspire the next generation of student athletes. So, on the basis of this, again, this is only the beginning of this task force. We still have a long way to go, and it's interesting to see if it'll be implemented in time for the CUMRC in a few weeks' time, or if it's going to be a main focus from next year onwards. However, I think the big thing that has been picked up by fans is that it still has U Sports and the CUMRC as separate entities. And it's long been held that to improve the growth of rugby in not only universities but high schools, is that men's rugby 15s becomes officially a U Sport category. And they say the reason why women's rugby was included was because men's college football was included in the system, and U Sports is wanting to ensure that there's fair disparity. There's no women's Canadian football or collegiate football enterprise, but they needed to have a physical full contact sport that could be seen as like the similar version, and the only thing that could fill that was women's rugby. So that seems to be an ongoing issue of the goal has always been to make the CUMRC become the U Sports Men's Rugby Championship. So that feels as though that hasn't been addressed, or there's no indication here of that being made with any progress. So I think that's a bit of a dampener for a lot of fans and supporters, but it does, from what we've seen from this press release, indicate that there is a continuation not only of the growth of university rugby for men, but also for women as well, as highlighted by the chair of sports for youth sports. But this is just my insight into it. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, as someone that played university rugby, you're spot on with your assessment of why women's rugby is in youth sport and men's is not. We were at a or I played at a university which was considered rugby only junior varsity. We only had some funding, so definitely if there's a way to increase funding for men's rugby 15s at the university level, I'm all for it. It could be this would be a huge step in player retention.
Mm.
Also, maybe catching on to some late bloomers too, not just those who did well at U20 events. So I'm interested in see how this goes. I'm interested in seeing how fast this is implemented, what their end goal is, because getting like I'll focus on men's rugby because I think women's rugby at university is pretty strong
Mm.
already. So I'll focus my comment on the men's rugby, but this would be a great step forward in trying to like push rugby up the ladder here and keep more players involved in the game after high school.
Yes.
Mhm.
I I think as well is that even though this isn't the announcement we wanted in terms of, oh, men's rugby is now a youth sport, recognized sport, but it can help build the framework to having that collaboration with youth sport to ensure that down the line we can have men's rugby fall under youth sports. And I think, well, I think one of the issues with that is that, we've all seen these press releases or these ideas come before, and, we're no closer to that goal at the end of it than we were at the start. But the collaboration does need to be there. It does need to be in place. And, we've even heard reports of student athletes from Europe considering moving to Canada so that they can continue playing women's rugby in a semi-professional environment where the opportunities at the professional level um, are there, but there's no stopgap between high school and pro without being a super athlete who can then just jump in straight once they turn 18. So there is clearly an opportunity that can grow from this task force for men's rugby, a continuation and expansion of it for women's rugby will always be well received in my book, at least, and I'm certainly in the minds of a lot of aspiring athletes who saw how well Canada did at the Women's Rugby World Cup and now can see the pathway of high school, university, getting into a club, and then playing for their nation. So yeah, I'm gonna reserve optimism for this instance and hope that it can uh, it can come to fruition. We just gotta get our learning done, get back to school, and make sure that these pathways and this task force can be utilized to its ultimate end goal. But again, we're at the beginning of this, so we're just hoping for the best. And speaking of beginnings of things, we have the beginnings of the men's squad for their international test taking place across November. So this information came out only a day or so ago from when we're recording, with the announcement of 33 players being selected by head coach Stephen Meehan for the tour to Romania, Georgia, and Portugal. Um, so before we get into the names and stuff, we have these quotes from Stephen Meehan saying, "We got 3 matches ahead, and with a demanding travel schedule, it will be interesting to see how our team adapts both on and off the field. We faced Romania twice in 2024. We were looking forward to that challenge again and to compete for the Cernavodă Cup, a great opportunity to focus our preparation and play for a meaningful trophy. Georgia are a very strong side, which will test us in different ways, while Portugal brings a unique style of play that will require us to adjust our approaches. Our goal is to continue developing the ability to adapt our game week to week, responding to the different styles and challenges that each nation presents. There have been some ongoing challenges around player availability and the uncertainty created by changes within Major League Rugby. As a result, a number of players have taken time to reflect on their careers, which has opened opportunities for emerging players to step up, showcase their abilities, and push for selection ahead of 2027. This saw as an exciting moment for both experienced and aspiring players to come together and continue building our program. And he concludes with saying, the proposed 2026 Nations Championship represents an exciting opportunity for us to align more closely with our international peers and continue climbing the world rankings. Facing at least two of these three teams again in 2026 would provide valuable experience as we build towards the Rugby World Cup. So before we get into the player selection, that line about challenges around player availability, uncertainty created within MLR, and players having taken time to reflect on their careers. I have this uncomfortable feeling that we may be getting some retirement announcements before the end of the year.
Yeah. Yes, it could possibly explain a couple name omissions there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think as well is that because of the changes to the Seven series as well, is that this season, the season that's just been, I should say, was intended for Canada to return to the Seven Series and get some potential funding through either the Canadian government as part of their Olympic funding or just have more funding from sponsors in general. Of course, we all know that they changed the structure of the Sevens just before the end of the season, which basically ring fence Canada from the hopes of getting back into seven. So it's not as if certain players can say, oh, okay, we'll just go and do sevens for a season and then see what opportunities present themselves and, show ourselves off on the world stage. Um, we do have the Rugby Americas North Sevens coming up. Canada is taking part in that as part of their qualification to get into the competition before the Challenger Series. So it's even further away for Canada to return to the Seven Series. Um, and yeah, as we know, is that MLR have changed their eligibility criteria, and now a lot of Canadians are left in the lurch of what can they do next. There have been some players that have been able to find opportunities elsewhere, such as Andrew Quattrin, who has signed for Vans in the Pro Deter. Um, but yeah, the majority of Canadians are not going to be able to have that option, and it may be that there's still the BC Premier League, but that's still semi-professional at best, and it's I understand that, especially if you have families, you have to be taking this time to make a decision. And obviously, it's not a quick or easy decision. You still have the Men's Rugby World Cup coming up in less than 2 years, and you can try and hold on for that. But yeah, I have an uncomfortable feeling that we're going to be getting some names saying that it's time to hang up the boots and join the real world or whatever nonsense that is. Um, so yeah, that is the concern for me at the moment. But I suppose now we should actually get into the player squad and all the interesting stuff we have from here. So from the press release, it says that the squad will be captained by Lucas Rumble, with 21 players returning from Canada's Pacific Nations Cup roster, including Jack Shaw and Austin Crichton, who both earned their first caps against Tonga. Seven players will be aiming to make their international debuts on tour. Ryan Cousins, Barnaby Wadden, Jeffrey Young, Morgan Donato, Josh McIndoe, Bryce Warden, and James Naylor. Cousins, Young, Donato, and McIndoe have all previously represented Canada's U20s men's rugby team. There's also 11 Pacific Pride graduates, including Kyle Tremblay and Emerson Pryor, and Sam Miller, who returns to the national team after a season with Southern District Rugby Club in Australia. And of course, the big names Matt Tierney and Robbie Povey have returned to the lineup. Tierney last played for Canada in 2021, Povey in 2023. Tierney having previously played for Castres and Povey playing with the Utah Warriors in MLR. From the squad list that we have received, Jeff, what do you make of the players that are going to Europe?
Well, it's a very much a mixed squad. I would say, well, mixed slash development squad, which is okay. This is far enough out that you can still get some like time to check on these players. I'm pretty excited to see some of the U20 guys that are coming in, Cousins, Young, I think Ward and Waddle in the forwards to see what they have. Uh, Also, I guess, well, Povey coming back. Apparently, he's been playing very well over in Europe. So, congrats to him for getting his name back in the ring and seeing how he does too. And in the backs, I'm very excited to see McIndoe and I guess DiNardo too. So,
Mm,
while we just talked about maybe some guys might hang up the boots, this is also an opportunity for young guys to get noticed. And they're young, and if they show quite well on this tour they might be getting some other offers from some other places too. So try to look on the glass half full side of things. Also, I want to give a shout out to Graham Moff. Congrats to getting back into coaching. For right,
yeah, yeah, I saw that as well. I also saw a name that wasn't there, which was
right.
Phil Mack. And with BC Rugby News reporting there's been some falling out between him and Meehan. They've reached out to several sources for confirmation, but nothing comes on. Anthony Matheson is replacing him. Um, another Australian who, according to BC Rugby News, appears to be Meehan's right-hand man. So that is interesting development that's been going on. But again, let's go over like some of the names. We previously mentioned of Josh McIndoe being one of these guys who should be getting more time with the Canadian national team, especially after their performance in the U20s competition between Canada, Fiji, Tonga, and Samoa. Um, doing really well. Bryce Warden, James Naylor, Morgan Donato as well. These are guys that we've been wanting to see get more opportunities in the senior squad. And I think having 21 players return from the PNC allows a continuation of um, the cohesion you would get from a team like that. So I think that's really good to see. Also, interesting that Sam Miller is able to get back into the squad after a season with a club in Australia as well. The Australian connection definitely helps. So definitely using that to move forward.
And he started a
According,
lot.
according to like Dakota McMullen is in the squad. Talon isn't, although sources indicate that that's due to injury. So hoping Talon is feeling better as soon as possible. There's also four names listed as non-traveling reserves, which is Carl Hunger, Alexander Jeanlin, Shane O'Leary, and Jesse Kilgour. And from what I in Carl Hunger is with Beaconsfield RFC, so he would still be in Quebec. Alexander Jeanlin is de Lis Jourdain, and that team, I believe, is still located in France. Shane O'Leary is in Ballina, which is an island, and Jesse Kilgour is in Barry. So has me thinking that if anything, if we need two players, it's probably the players that are currently based in Europe. But who knows? We shall see. Familiar names in the squad. We've already got Brock Gallagher, Jason Higgins, Spencer Jones, Peter Nelson, Cooper Coates in the backs. In the forwards, we have Dwight Kotzer, Isaac Kelly, Mason Flesh, Piers van Dazelden. We got a good mix, I think, of experience. We're getting guys the opportunities to get more caps. And yeah, I think this is a pretty decent squad. To the surprise of no one, a lot of Europeans aren't available, especially Tyler Ardron and Evan Olmsted, but I fully believe that is due to the agreements they've made with their clubs and Rugby Canada. I know Olmsted was available for the summer tests, and I think he just wanted to get back in the squad and prove that he hadn't lost a step, which he did very well. Tyler Ardron said he was only available for the one game against the United States, which was, you know, exactly enough, getting as many points as the United States and ensuring Canada qualify for the Rugby World Cup. So yeah, all works in that regard. And yeah, I think that this is the perfect opportunity to develop younger talent, to get them into an international environment. And as Stephen Meehan said about work off the field, is understanding the demands of a short turnaround at international level.
I just want to add to with the squad. I think they have a starting lineup from that squad that should be able to challenge Portugal and Romania reasonably well.
Mm,
Georgia, unfortunately, I think will be a step too far. That's where we
mm,
would have wanted to see the Euro-based forwards.
mm.
But as I said, I do think they have assuming all are healthy, they would have a pretty good squad for that. And also going to Sam Miller, he actually started most of those games for Southern Districts in Australia.
Mm.
So congrats to him for getting into the squad based on a great season down under.
Yeah, absolutely. So the good thing about this time of year, we're getting like all the squads in. We're getting the European-based teams. We're getting, the rugby championship teams as well as New Zealand, for example. They're eyeing their Grand Slam of the home nations. We're getting the squads in for the Repechage tournament, which is taking place during the international window. Um, and yeah, as we get the information for Romania, for Georgia, for Portugal, I think it's going to be a very interesting autumn for Canada. And I got to agree with you, Jeff. I think that, as proven last year, Romania is a very winnable game, and doesn't necessarily need the European-based players to come in and dominate the game. I mean, I'm not going to turn it down if it happens, but I'm also content understanding that the the Canadian base players can win that game. Portugal as well. I think there were after how they performed against Ireland in the summer. I think a lot of people are saying that Portugal have taken the foot off the gas. Now that they've qualified for the World Cup, their focus has slipped. So I think that's another very winnable game. But I have to agree with you. I think Georgia, unless they put out a B squad, and I think that's a game too far. But the experience of going to Georgia and playing in Georgia, I think is going to be real opportunity for all the players that are playing in that game. And I can also see the preparation of going from Georgia to Portugal, basically going from one side of Europe to the other, is going to be a huge mental test to the players as well.
I wonder how
And
many transfers they will have to do.
pardon?
I wonder how many transfers they will have to do.
Well, hopefully the fewer the better. But yeah, I can definitely see. I think Romania to Georgia is a direct flight, but Georgia Even if they can get from Georgia to Spain and then Spain to Portugal, that's a much easier journey. But as they mentioned in the uh, press release, is that you're not. I think it's only one game is being played in capital city, and that's Romania, who's play when they play in Bucharest. In Georgia, it's Batumi, and in Portugal, it's Coimbra. So. No, getting from Tbilisi to Batumi, my geography knowledge of Georgia isn't that great. I don't know if they have to take a plane, if they have to take a coach, but I hope they can get there well enough. And yeah, it's just planes, trains, and automobiles at this point of getting from game to game. But I think we can have a positive feeling going into this Autumn International Series for Canada. And if you are looking for any of those games, they will be shown on TSN. Broadcast information will be available most likely during the week of the match. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more, as well as our written pieces on our website, therougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify and on YouTube at The Rouge Rugby. We're also available across social media, including Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Again, all at The Rouge Rugby. Jeff, where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on X at WP Rugby Jeff.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Jeff, thank you for joining me, and thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.